Go all in on fall with Abercrombie Kids. Their newest drop of on-trend outfits are ready for everything, from the bus stop to family bonfires. And it wouldn't be fall without football. Gear up the kids with officially licensed NFL tees and sweatshirts. Shop Abercrombie Kids this season in the app, online, and in-store.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
So if I was to paraphrase, do you think read wide, be proud of who you are?
Yes.
And don't afraid to speak up.
Yeah, don't. And this is something that my teachers always said to my son, is to advocate for yourself. So, I think that if you aren't willing to advocate for yourself, then it's hard to advocate for other people as well. And as a writer, whether it's overtly or not, the things that we are writing about our characters, either advocate or normalize certain things in our readers' minds.
Hey everyone, I'm Bianca Schulze, founder of the Children's Book Review, and this is the Growing Readers Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. I'm thrilled to introduce our guest, Stan Yan, an award-winning creator whose journey into children's literature beautifully exemplifies the power of representation and authentic storytelling. Stan is a first-generation American-born Chinese writer, illustrator, and caricature artist based in Denver. His creative path has been anything but ordinary. He spent 13 years as a stockbroker before fully embracing his artistic calling. Today, he's deeply embedded in the creative community as co-founder of the Squidworks Comic Creator Cooperative, co-regional advisor for the Rocky Mountain chapter of SCBWI, and a member of the Cuttlefish Gang Art Collective. His work spans an impressive range from comic anthologies like The Sunday Ha-Ha and Vincent Price Presents to his picture book, There's a Zombie in the Basement. Stan's illustrations have appeared in publications including Denver Comics, Kite Tales, and The Westward, and his talent was recognized with the grand prize at the 2022 SCBWI Florida Conference Portfolio Excellence Award. Stan currently teaches illustration at the Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design and through the Cuttlefish Academy, sharing his expertise with the next generation of artists and storytellers. But today, we're here to discuss his debut middle grade graphic novel, The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang, published by Anthemium Books. This spooky, funny story has already earned recognition as a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection, a remarkable achievement for a debut work. What makes Stan's story behind this story particularly compelling is his candid reflection on representation in his own work. As you'll hear in our conversation, there was a pivotal moment when he realized his characters didn't look like him, despite drawing from his own experiences. This realization, sparked by reading authors like Andrea Wang, Grace Lin, and Kelly Yang, transformed not only his approach to character creation, but also deepened his understanding of why authentic representation matters. In today's conversation, we dive deep into Eugenia's world, a story that weaves Chinese superstitions, middle school challenges, and supernatural elements into a narrative that's both entertaining and meaningful. We explore the creative process behind the book's 6 major revisions, discuss the significance of the unlucky number 4 in Chinese culture, and hear Stan's thoughts on creating authentic characters while tackling themes of family expectations, cultural identity, and self-discovery. So settle in for a conversation about the power of specificity in storytelling, the importance of diverse voices in children's literature, and one creator's journey to understanding that drawing characters who look like yourself isn't just possible, it's essential. But first, here's the synopsis for The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang. In this hilarious and heartfelt debut graphic novel, a girl born on a day considered unlucky in Chinese superstition starts to wonder if she really is cursed when she's troubled by visions of doom set to occur on her 13th birthday. Year-old Eugenia Wang has never celebrated her birthday on her actual birthday, April 4th, because of her mum's belief in the Chinese superstition that 4 is an unlucky number. And that's not the only thing Mum's strict about. She won't let Eugenia go to a summer comic art camp because she thinks art is a waste of time. This year, Eugenia is determined to defy her mum by applying for the camp, having her party on her actual birthday, and inviting her super cute crush while she's at it too. But when Eugenia gets hit in the head with a sneaker during PE, she starts getting unnerving visions of impending doom about her upcoming birthday. It might be the after effects of her head injury, or maybe she's just anxious about turning 13. As the visions get worse, even affecting her artwork, Eugenia suspects an unseen force may be sending her messages. If she's haunted after all, Eugenia will have to figure out why before it's too late. Even more horrifying, she may have to do the unthinkable, admit her mom was right.
Welcome to the show, Stan. I'm so excited to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is my first for this book.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Well, I feel very privileged. I'm sure there's many more to come. Since you're a newbie on the show, which I love a first-time guest, I'm wanting to just hit you up with some rapid fire questions just so we can get a little sense of who is Stan Yan. Are you ready?
I guess so.
This is whatever comes to mind. You know, you can reserve the right to change your mind in another podcast.
Okay.
All right. The first one is introvert, extrovert, or somewhere in between?
I'm probably somewhere in between. I think in my own head, I'm an introvert, but I don't know that other people see me that way.
Yeah. Relatable. Favorite comic book character when you were growing up?
I'd say comic book character. That's tough because actually I was more into comic strips growing up, and I didn't get into comic books until I was much older. So I would probably say Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah. Do you still have the collection of books for your own son?
I have one of them, and I find that sometimes it's futile trying to push my own book interests on him.
Well, I loved watching cartoons as a kid, and I have to imagine that you watched cartoons too. So what cartoon character would you want to hang out with for the day?
Oh, gosh, probably Scooby-Doo. I don't know, like all the dog characters are always the best. So like in Inspector Gadget, Brain was the best. And then, Wallace and Gromit, Gromit's so awesome.
Well, if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, gosh. I think I already have superpowers. And I don't know, because I always see the cautionary tales about having a superpower, especially things like time travel or whatever, and then how it just makes things way worse. So for me, the existing superpower I have, according to my wife, is if she's watching Outlander and I walk into the room, a steamy scene always comes on without a doubt. Which one do I want? I don't know. I suppose probably I feel like singing is a superpower, and I'd love to be able to sing a little bit better. But I'd like to be able to actually maybe a photographic memory, so that when I read something, I remember it all, because I have got horrible reading comprehension. I'd love to have my son's reading comprehension.
I love that. I always say, and it's funny because I spend my days reviewing children's books and interviewing authors, and I always say it's hard for me to remember exactly what a book was about, but I always remember how I felt when I was reading it. And I say that counts.
Guilty.
Right.
I think the problem with me is when I'm whether I'm reading a book or whether I'm listening to an audiobook, my mind tends to wander because I'll like hear something that really connects with me or that I like. And then I'll start thinking about how it applies to my life or how it gives me an idea for a story I'm writing or a character or whatever. And then before I know it, I've been just sitting thinking about that for 10 minutes. And then I don't know what I've been listening to or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Again, totally relatable. All right. Well, I'm going to do a creator type rapid fire here. Early bird creator or night owl artist?
Gosh, that's a good question because I used to be very much a morning person or a night person. And then I was a stockbroker for about 13 years. So I had to wake up with the East Coast. And because of both of those things and then becoming a parent, I am neither a morning. I'm just tired all the time. So my creativity is whenever I'm awake. Definitely not after lunch because that's when I need a nap.
Well, that's a fun answer. All right. Okay. So favorite place to draw or write?
My favorite place to draw or write is at home. There's a lot of like distractions, especially the couch after lunch, as I'd mentioned. And I used to love going to coffee shops and things like that. But I feel like, because of deadlines and I mean, working in isolation is kind of nice because it gives my imagination room to breathe without having to overhear someone else's conversation. I always get a lot of ideas. So if I'm out somewhere, I'll end up overhearing something or seeing something that ends up distracting me and giving me more ideas, which isn't a bad thing. But when I'm trying to be focused on an accomplishment, then that's not necessarily always good.
Right, well, music, silence, or background noise when you work?
Depends on what stage of the process I'm in. So if I'm doing any sort of writing at all, I need silence. If I'm doing rough layouts, silence, or just, background noise, nothing too engaging. And if I'm coloring my comic, then anything goes.
Pen, pencil, or digital stylus?
Mostly digital at this point, mostly because of revision aspects and the undo thing. And I find that when I try to draw traditionally and then I do this to enlarge it, it doesn't work.
Yeah. anyone listening, Stan using his pointer finger and his thumb, when you're trying to like tap the screen and like make something get bigger.
Right.
But if your artistic style had a flavor, what would it be?
Artistic style had a flavor. I mean, my mind immediately went to ice cream for some reason. So I'm thinking mint chocolate chip just because it's my favorite. But, oh man, that's a good question. It would have to be something kind of creepy because like there's always something a little unsettling about the things that I'm interested in, even if they're cute things,
So what about like cinnamon, because it's kind of like spicy, but then it ends up like smooth or something.
Or maybe pumpkin spice. There you go. Because that like is tied to holidays that I'm kind of obsessed with.
Yeah. So there you go. I like that. See, we got there. All right. What's the strangest thing you've had to research for a story?
I don't know if it's the strangest, and I actually did a video about this, but for this book, I was trying to like figure out something divination wise. So like a Ouija board, but I wanted something specifically Chinese. So I started looking up, Chinese divination and, kind of did a dive into a bunch of YouTube videos where I was watching them. It was like almost like a divining rod that two people would hold that go into like a sandbox. And then they're supposed to, be like spirits would be writing words through them. And that would be sending messages from the other side.
I love that. And I having read the book, I know that there's a scene with that. So let's see. What is the most unexpected reaction you've gotten from a young reader or a recipient of a piece of art you've created?
I think the most unexpected was from my picture book that I came out with in 2016. There's a zombie in the basement. And the unexpected thing was I was contacted by Make-A-Wish. And one of their Make-A-Wish recipients had that as their favorite book. And that just touched me in the deepest way and kind of reinforced why I'm doing what I'm doing. What am I doing it for?
That just gave me goosebumps. I love that.
Yes. It just gave me goosebumps. I was the one saying it.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. All right. Well, what's a favorite middle grade book that isn't yours?
Favorite middle grade book that isn't mine? Probably Ghost Book by Remy Lai.
I knew you were going to say that. Oh my gosh, when I wrote this.
Because that's your superpower.
I knew you were going to say that. I freaking love Remy Lai and Ghost Book. I mean, it's so incredible. I love that you said that.
Did you get a chance to meet her when she was in town?
I didn't.
So she was doing a signing at Second Star, and she'd been on this probably worldwide tour doing school visits and everything. Unfortunately, by the time she got here, she was sick, so she had a mask on. And
oh, bummer. Well, we did have her on the podcast, so anyone listening, go back and listen to Remy Lai.
I didn't know that. I'll have to go back through your archives.
Yeah, so, she was on.
Nice.
I love her. I've never read a Remy Lai book that I don't love. All right. Well, what's the best piece of advice another author has ever given you?
The best piece of advice another author has given me actually might be from Kaz Windness. Is just be ready to wait. Like once you get into publishing, just be prepared to wait. And so for me, it's been nice because like I think the first time I had to wait for anything, I was just unproductive because I didn't want to like do anything or start anything. And then all of a sudden, get my marching orders from my editor. And now I know better where I'm like, okay, this is going to be a little while. So feel free to have fun and do the things that you want to do or work on, things that you need to do your taxes, that kind of thing. I've been waiting for some editorial notes from my editor recently, and I found myself doing a lot of artwork for myself. I've been working, I don't know if you've been watching social media, but I've been doing some fan art for some books that I've been reading, and that's been a lot of fun too. And trying to build my cover art portfolio because I want to make myself available during these big breaks where I'm waiting for my editor to maybe get brought on to do some cover art for a middle grade book or novel or something.
Yeah, awesome. Well, two really quick tangents is since I just raved about Remy Lai and then you mentioned Kaz Windness. Hi, yes. Kaz, we love you. And everyone, Kaz has been on the podcast too. Yes, blowing kisses to Kaz. Go back and listen to Kaz's episode. And then also, if you don't follow Stan on TikTok, I love Stan's TikTok feed. It's humorous and you see him sketching and he'll do critiques of other people's art. And I do like your feed a lot. So if you're not already following Stan on TikTok, please go and do that. All right. So last rapid fire. If you could collaborate with any artist or author, living or dead, who would it be?
Just because of the topic matter and because I had a thing in mind, probably Kaz, actually. And plus, we can easily keep each other accountable because we probably get together for donuts every 1 or 2 weeks.
Okay, well, I said no more rapid fire questions. Okay, so what kind of donut? Are you like the cake style donut or the traditional kind of yeast donut?
It depends on from where. I grew up really loving like the Dunkin' donuts, but then they stopped making them at the donut shop and they're not great anymore. And then when I went to high school, Daylight Donuts used to provide my school donuts, and I really, really loved their glazed raised donuts. But the restaurant that we go to, which used to be a Daylight Donuts, but they keep the same donut recipes. I think they just, licensed them off of them or something. I don't know. Their cake donuts are incredible. So, yesterday Kaz and I went and I had a cake donut with chocolate icing and blue sprinkles. Fantastic.
There you go. Now I need to go out for donuts. So here's my question, no longer in the rapid fire. What's one thing that you do in your day-to-day practices that you think would be the most surprising or just even something really relatable?
Most surprise. I don't know. I think I already gave that away. Probably the nap. I don't think there's anything I do in particular that's very notable or surprising. I don't know.
I'm kind of jealous that you can nap. I am completely unable to nap despite, however, being tired. I cannot nap during the day.
I think I can't sleep in, and that's why I need the nap. So, like, as I've gotten older, I find myself waking up really early in the morning. I told you I'm not a morning person. I'm still not. So that just like leads to sleep deprivation. And then when I get food in my stomach, then all the blood rushes from my head to my stomach. I need a nap.
Love it. What would you say it is that motivates you, what drives you and guides you to create books specifically for children?
I think because I'm inspired by children's literature. I mean, originally it was my son. So like before my son was born, I had like absolutely no interest in doing children's books just because, what I do and my muse is comics. So it's a little time consuming because I'm not only writing, I'm drawing, I'm doing the whole, ball of wax there. But then my son came along and he became kind of the focus of my inspirations because I think originally it's because I wanted to entertain him. But even before that, I kind of got addicted to entertaining people, but I can't remember things, so I can't be a stand-up comedian. And I'm kind of good at drawing, so that seemed to always be like the way I needed to tell stories. And in my own head, I always see stories in comic panels for as long as I can remember. So that ended up being the media that the format that I used to, originally just to tell jokes mostly. Like I said, I was really inspired by comic strips. But I think like the first time I sold like a photocopied, saddle-stitched comic book, self-published comic book at a comic book convention to a stranger, and they told me how much they loved it. That was the juice, man. That's what keeps me going is being able to have an effect on people, but specifically children, because as I started writing for children, I started reading a lot more children's books. And I feel like I love them a lot better because of the pure motivations of a child protagonist, as opposed to like a lot of the adult stuff that I've been reading was, zombie apocalypse stuff. And everyone is just like so damaged beyond belief that the protagonists, have very selfish motivations at times, or they do things because they're damaged. Whereas I feel like most children protagonists, even YA, there's still hope, and that's what I love about it. And I like to normalize that we don't have to be evil people. Whereas I think a lot of times in adult literature, it's like, it's inevitable. We're all evil.
Yeah. There might be some truth to that, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like to think that way,
Yeah. I love that. I know.
I do feel like, reading is a gateway to connecting with other people. And I think that a lot of the adult literature that normalizes that we're all evil, or movies or TV, is based on the people that we see around us that probably don't read.
Yeah. Truth to that too, probably. All right. Well, to be a writer, they say that you need to be a reader first. So was there a pivotal moment in which you considered yourself a reader?
I feel bad because I've been horrendous as a reader because like I said, I have bad reading comprehension, and I always have. I was a slow reader growing up. But the things that appealed to me were heavily illustrated. So growing up, I really loved Where the Wild Things Are because of the imagery. I loved Dr. Seuss because of the rhymey sing-song nature of the text. And those were like two major authors and illustrators that influenced me at that time. And then, you get into school and pretty much most of what I was reading was what was assigned to me. I had to read for English class. And then in college that continued. And, I still had my moments where I had got into spurts of reading Stephen King or Anne Rice or all the spooky stuff that I love. But when I got out of school, unless it was like a comic book or a graphic novel, I would say there were times where there were probably gaps where I didn't read for entertainment for like 10 years, a long time. So I think it started reading more probably around the time I started doing children's books. And now I'm mostly reading novels. And thanks to my discovery of audiobooks, I'm voracious. It's unusual if I don't get through 7,500 books a year. Yeah.
I love audiobooks, but I'm so curious then if audiobooks is maybe the medium that you frequent most in terms of reading. Have you noticed if that audio storytelling has impacted your visual storytelling? So when you're listening and taking in the audio, maybe this is a bit of an abstract question, but do you get sort of more visual inspiration when you're listening?
I don't know. I mean, I'm always visual no matter what, whether I'm like reading a book or if I'm listening to a book. So I really couldn't say one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
right.
that's my long answer for you.
I love it. That probably have been the shortest one yet. I love it.
I'm Scott Hansen, host of NFL Red Zone. Lowe's knows Sundays hit different when you earn them. We've got you covered with outdoor power equipment from Cobalt and everything you need to weatherproof your deck with Trex decking. Plus, with lawn care from Scott's and, of course, Pit Boss grills and accessories, you can get a home field advantage all season long. So get to Lowe's, get it done, and earn your Sunday. Lowe's, official partner of the NFL.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Let's get into your graphic novel. So it's your debut graphic novel, and it's The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang, and it combines Chinese superstitions, middle school challenges, supernatural elements. So I would love it if you can walk us through how this story came to life, because I want listeners to hear the backstory of the various iterations that began with a completely different main protagonist. So Eugenia is an amazing protagonist. I love Eugenia, but she wasn't actually how the story started. So walk us through it.
She wasn't originally female, and she wasn't originally Chinese. So for me, this was actually kind of a bucket list thing that I wanted to do, because I wanted to write and illustrate a comic that actually scared me, because even though comics has a rich history of horror, it just never scared me, the same way that like a movie would or a novel would. Because with a novel, like I said, I'm always visual. And so my brain does all the heavy lifting about how scary the thing I'm reading is, And then on the movie side, you have the benefit of sound effects, an editor that paces things and edits things the way that the speed that they want you to watch things. And so the jump scares work. But, the closest thing to that in a comic is the page turn, I mean, there's like only so much someone's going to jump after a page turn, I would think. So I was like, there's got to be a way of creating a comic that would scare me. And so as I started thinking about the things that I really loved and that spooked me, there was like a common thread through a lot of it, which was I was relating to a child character. And so I'm like, okay, well, I need to make the protagonist a child of some sort, because I felt like, well, like children are a little more innocent, and they also maybe haven't discounted the possibility of what can or can't be because of science or because of, whatever, And so, I could do some supernatural stuff there. So it almost by accident became a children's book. I'd already written, there's a zombie in the basement by then. But then I started writing it, and it was originally a story called Olfactory Memory, where, the main character gets hit in the head and starts having these visions triggered by certain smells of what he later connects to being past lives that he's had. So he's been reincarnated, but always at the moment that he dies in those past lives, and it's always on his 13th. So then I started reading books by like Andrea Wang and Kelly Yang and Grace Lin, and it made me do a little bit of soul searching, because I was like, first of all, in my picture book, why did I not make my protagonist, who's named after my son, look like me? Because he looks like me, I never even considered it. And this is why, when I do school visits, I always talk about how representation matters, because I don't want you to grow up thinking that you can't draw a main character that looks like yourself. Like me, as a 50-year-old, I still thought, it never even crossed my mind, because in my mind, I'm rationalizing that, I want to make this as appealing to as many people as possible and make it more universal. But universal to who, And then there was a quote, I forget who delivered the quote, but I remember Jason Reynolds repeated it about how you make something so specific, it becomes universal. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because I think like there's a certain authenticity that needs to be in things that become universal. And if you're not really writing based on your own experiences in history and who you are, then it's not going to be quite as authentic. So anyway, then I was like, oh, I should make him Chinese, and just to make it even more authentic, I was like, why don't we like set it in the early 1980s when I was a child too, and so it could be kind of like a love story to my own childhood and things that I had to deal with Chinese parents and Chinese older sister and everything. But then I took it to get a manuscript review with at the summer SCBWI virtual conference with Melissa Manlove, who at that time was with Chronicle Books. And she's like, oh, I love it, but I think there's like too many things going on. So she encouraged me to make it contemporary and take out the whole smell sensory thing, because she thought that was like a separate superpower and it could be a separate story. So I'm like, all right. And then in the interim, as I'd been doing all these school visits for There's a Zombie in the Basement, I'd been talking to a lot of librarians who were, of course, our conversations always went to scary books, because There's a Zombie in the Basement. And a lot of them would tell me that there needs to be more scary books for girls. I'm like, well, maybe I should, as I'm rewriting this, I'll make the protagonist female instead. And plus, when I was writing Olfactory Memory, it quickly became clear it wasn't scary to me anymore. I love the story, but it wasn't scary to me. So I rewrote it and I kind of simplified things, but I'm like, there's still got to be a way of getting her into these visions of her impending doom, And like, well, why don't I make her a comic artist? And so the comic kind of becomes the portal to these visions, whether they're just dreams based, on her head injury, or are they actually a premonition?
Yeah.
You never know. And so things started happening in the story, like, panels got changed or drawn and she doesn't remember doing any of it. And then like she's trying to change things and the changes get torn up and there's like automatic drawing going on. And these are all like things that I already thought were creepy. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, in the process of taking Melissa's advice and rewriting it, it became scary again. And it is my bucket list story once again.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad that you shared that, because I think, I know we have a lot of writers that listen, but we also have kids and we also have families and teachers and all sorts of people. And so sometimes when you see these polished, beautiful stories, whatever the theme is, whether it's spooky or drama or, just something beautiful and hopeful. It can look like it was so easy to arrive at this polished story. But I love that you shared that because it just shows the different iterations in the process and the time that it takes to create something, and being open to feedback and listening and being open to ideas and playing with your story. And so I love that you shared it.
Yeah, I mean, it was something I started, I think it was in 2015 or 2016 is when I started writing it. And it's gone through 6 major plot revisions. And and a couple of those revisions were like full manuscripts, like the whole book.
All right. Well, let's go into Eugenia a little bit.
Okay.
So she wants to attend a comic art camp, but her mom believes that art is a complete waste of time, or so it seems. And as a first-generation American-born Chinese creator, that's you, Stan.
Yes.
How much have your own cultural experiences influenced Eugenia's story and her relationship with her mom?
Quite a bit. I think like her relationship with her mom isn't my relationship with my mom. It's my older sister's relationship with my mom. Now, granted, I was the one that wanted to be an artist, not my sister. But like a lot of what I wrote into the book was based on kind of their hot-tempered relationship, especially, in those adolescent years where she's really trying to become her own person. My mom just wants her to follow the rules and do what's smart and prudent. Certainly, like a lot of the talk about, doing something more practical with your life than art. We were immersed in that. We have an opportunity, but I think like the problem is that a lot of times our parents have a different idea of what would make for a good life for you as a child. And I think like a lot of immigrants just struggle to survive because they're just trying to put food on the table, a roof above their head. So money is kind of the center of all of that. But, once you have all of those lower parts of your Maslow's hierarchy of needs taken care of, there's also some things that help with your health, mental and physical. And I think those 2 things are tied together. So I think pursuing your passions helps with your mental health. And as I always tell students at schools, it doesn't have to be something that you do for a living either. Because I've seen a lot of artists who, as soon as they start worrying about the money aspect of their art, then they start kind of despising it and it becomes stressful. And I like to use this analogy. I ask the students, so how many of your parents are passionate about golf? And of course, a lot of the kids' hands go up. I'm like, all right, how many of those of you that have your hands up have a parent that's on the PGA Tour? And then everyone's hands go down. I'm like, but they made time in their lives to do what they're passionate about. And that probably helps a lot with their mental health.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in the story, Eugenia is turning 13, which is a really significant milestone for kids and also parents that are parenting them. So what made this age, 13, particularly interesting for you to explore in the story based on superstition, family dynamics, and self-discovery? Like, what made it interesting for you to explore 13?
I think like 13 is just, it's uncomfortable. And I think like as writers, I always tell people your job is to torture your protagonist. And what better time of your life to torture your protagonist than when they're probably at their most vulnerable. And I think you're also kind of in between. Like for me, there was a lot of conflict in my own household between my mom and my dad's, her in-laws, because they wanted to drag me to church, and she was really against any sort of religious or nationalistic indoctrination at all, because she had some pretty bad experiences when her whole family were trying to immigrate out of communist China, and somehow, probably, whatever deal they were able to turn, her whole family was able to leave except for the oldest child, which was her, and her grandmother. And so she had to stay an extra year in China. And over that course of that year, when she was going to school, they made the kids go out to playgrounds and, watch people get executed.
Oh my gosh.
So I think that kind of tied into like her whole not wanting, any of her kids to be indoctrinated into anything because she saw what the result of it could be.
Yeah.
And so, that was, I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought. What was the question?
It was exploring the number 13.
Well, the number 13, yes. So in my own life, that was kind of where I was trying to figure out what I believed, and so I had a little bit of exposure to church and the people at church. And then on the other side, things that are going on at home and the conflict between my mom and dad and his parents revolving around this. And that's kind of what Eugenia is going through because she's trying to figure out what she believes in, what's important, and what she wants to prioritize in her life. And that was the same thing I was going through at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a whole nother podcast episode, but I just feel as though almost what you're exploring is an inherited trauma. And there's so much of that just exists in the world. I think so many of us are carrying this inherited trauma that we don't even fully understand. And I think that's why it's so important for there to be so many different stories available to explore all the different views and angles. And
just so people know that they're not alone, because when you don't have books that have representation, you end up being an adult like me that doesn't even consider drawing my protagonist anything but a white person.
Yeah. I mean, that just blows my mind, right? As a white woman, I would never imagine that somebody wouldn't know that they can draw themselves. And so, we need to hear more stories. And I'm so glad that you shared that, Stan. And I'm so glad that you know that you can draw yourself. And I'm sad that you had to wait till you were 50 to know that,
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go on to this question, which is another number question. So the number 4 is considered unlucky in Chinese culture.
Yes.
And it plays...
I've since found out in a lot of Asian cultures, apparently. And I don't know if it has to do with the language, and it wouldn't surprise me. But so again, this is something I didn't know about. I mean, I grew up with a Chinese family in suburban Denver, since the 1970s. And so there was not a lot of Chinese culture around me. So if my parents didn't tell me about it, I didn't know about it, And so in 2004, at the end of the Summer Olympics, when they look forward to the next Summer Olympics, they were talking about the 2008 Olympics in Beijing and how they actually won the 2004 Olympics, but they rejected it. They turned it down because 4 was an unlucky number. And so that was the first I'd heard of that. And I learned that 4 was an unlucky number because the word sounds just like the word for death. I mean, just with a little, different inflection to it. And so it's always been considered an unlucky number. And I've since also learned that a lot of buildings in the Far East don't have a 4th floor. Like you look at the row of elevator buttons and there's no number 4 button. So
why don't you share about it sort of described that maybe superstitious feeling and understandably if it sounds a little bit like the word death, but why don't you talk about it in the sense of how it shapes Eugenia's character and journey? Because we kick off the story learning about number 4. So why don't you share a little bit about it?
So Eugenia Wang was born on April 4th. And because of her mom's belief in this bad luck number, she's never let Eugenia celebrate her birthday on her actual birth date because, April 4th is 4-4, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's
and
double
so
unlucky.
I think in my mind through Eugenia's life, she's been cool with it. But this year, she's finally had it. She sees it as a personal slight to her as a person, and so she's going to push back. And so together with her best friend Keisha, they're planning a secret birthday party on the upcoming Friday, which is April 4th, whereas the official party is on Saturday, April 5th at her parents' house. So they're going to kind of have a sneaky birthday, spend the night at Keisha's house, invite the people that they want to invite, and basically be rebellious, which is not in Eugenia's character normally. But, she's turning 13, so she's getting a little antsy.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, there's like a moment that Eugenia might have to, let's put quotes here, might have to do the unthinkable and admit that her mom was right. So do you want to talk about that moment?
And as I'd mentioned earlier, she has a head injury. So one day in PE, she actually falls on Eugenia, and she gets a concussion, ends up in the hospital. And ever since she's had this dream about her death on her 13th birthday on April 4th. And it's recurring, and it's one of these things that every time she has it, there's a few more facts that are revealed, or maybe, sometimes the facts change a little bit. So she starts to believe that this is actually not a dream; it's a premonition, and so that would vindicate mom in that 4 is an unlucky number if she actually celebrates her birthday on the 4th. And so a lot of the story is her trying to kind of audit the differences in what she thinks is going to happen and what is happening in these visions and how they line up, and maybe how she can change what might be her future fate.
All right. Well, let's talk about creating your, what I'm going to call is delightfully quirky supporting characters. Okay. And I know one of your favorite quotes from the book is when Keisha describes Jordan as not just a scientist, marathoner, and viral accordion YouTube star. He's a paranormal research nut. So why don't you pick 2 side characters and tell us why you gave them the traits you did and how much fun you had creating them. And I just want to say that again, because I think it's such a funny description. Not just a scientist, marathoner, and viral accordion YouTube star. He's a paranormal research nut. And like, even without the graphic panel, like you can visualize.
So let's talk about Jordan, since you brought him up. So he's actually one of Keisha's dads, and both of her dads are scientists. And so that actual quote, came about because they're trying to really figure out what's happening and figure out whether these visions are being spurred on by something paranormal or whatever. And so Keisha really kind of gets excited about the prospect of exploring those things. But what Eugenia knows of Keisha is that she's all about science stuff. She's like a science nut. She's in robotics club, and both of her dads are scientists, like I said. But this was like some new information that, like everyone else, Jordan has multiple interests, and his happened to be extremely divergent. And so it was kind of like a funny thing. I'm like, oh, let's make him kind of like a conduit for information that helps to, guide the reader to learn a little bit more about what may or may not, these visions may or may not be. And I had a lot of fun just kind of with the dynamic within Keisha's household as a contrast from how Eugenia's household is and how they live. Everything is very serious because of mom, whereas everything is very lighthearted, and they have a very sarcastic and fun-loving relationship with one another. And there are a few outtakes that kind of crushed me, kill your darlings, that my editor had me take out, where I explored the relationship between Keisha's family members at that time. But that was basically what Jordan was, and then the other character I'd like to talk about is the dog, Peanut. So let's talk a little bit about Peanut. So Peanut really is kind of, he's like the side of Eugenia that, like, if she doesn't feel like she can yell at mom, then Peanut will bark at her for him or for her. And so Peanut is really Keisha's right-hand man throughout this whole story. And there is like a little plot line that plays into Keisha's character development that involves Peanut as well. So, overall, Peanut's just really cute. And hopefully, I don't know if you've got attached to Peanut while reading this, but Peanut is an important part of the plot that helps Keisha be a little bit less selfish as her personality grows and she grows as a person, because being older isn't all about just independence. It's also about I think growing as a compassionate human being. Which way are you going to go?
Yeah. And sometimes I don't want to talk about a specific character because I don't want to be the one to let out a spoiler, but I did love Peanut, and I find Peanut's little plot line very connective and very poignant. And that's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Go read the book, everybody. Well, at the time that we're recording this conversation, which is a little bit ahead of when your book releases, it was selected as a Junior Library Guild Gold Standard selection for your debut.
I know.
So
that
cool.
was surprised, extremely flattered, because I know that that's not an easy thing. That's a very, very select group. And then, narrowing it down to just like graphic novels as well, because maybe only a couple of graphic novels get selected for these boxes, So I'm extremely flattered.
Well, I think it's so cool. And I know that just before you mentioned that stories from authors like Andrea Wang, Grace Lin, Kelly Yang, and Lisa Yi gave you personal permission to create characters that look like you. So from reading their stories, you felt like, I can do this. So I'm curious, is there anything that you want to say to them, and what would that be?
Well, I just like to say thank you for kind of paving the way for me and opening my eyes as well. Like I said, there was that decade period where I wasn't reading a lot, so I probably wasn't aware of as many books by Chinese American authors as I should have been. But, I also grew up at a time where, like, the one book I can remember that had some Chinese representation in it was The Five Chinese Brothers. And that book wasn't necessarily one that made me feel great about myself as a Chinese person. So, for me, I was just inundated with media and entertainment that was, the Asian characters were side characters, comic relief, martial artists.
Well, if you could share any inspiration for maybe young creators that look like you, Stan, what would you want to say to them?
Be well read. I would say there's nothing wrong with doing like I did and doing a deep dive into a lot of Asian American authors' books and finding out commonalities and differences as well. What are some things in your own life that were different than what they're representing in their literature? I mean, for me, one of the more interesting things that seemed like common through a lot of these books is just the propensity for Asian American immigrant parents to not want to rock the boat. So even when you recognize that there's something wrong about how you're treated or microaggressions or whatever, our families have a history of not wanting to say anything about it or speak up. And, it was kind of cool to read some of these stories where now the next generation of character down is not okay with it and wants to do something about it. But I was like, oh yeah, that is totally true. Why is it that my family wasn't more activist like some of my friends' families were and things like that? Because we definitely had to endure a lot of different things and continued to every once in a while, and I guess recently a lot more often, but like at times where we thought, everything is cool and we've completely become integrated into the society as Chinese Americans, someone would lean out their car window and yell ching chong at me. And I'm like, whoa, where was that from? Because this is, that hadn't happened to me in 20 years.
So if I was to paraphrase, do you think read wide, be proud of who you are.
Yes.
And don't be afraid to speak up.
Yeah, don't be afraid to, and this is something that my teachers always said to my son, is to advocate for yourself. So, I think that if you aren't willing to advocate for yourself, then it's hard to advocate for other people as well. And as a writer, I mean, whether it's overtly or not, the things that we are writing about our characters either advocate or normalize certain things in our readers' minds, and in movies and whatever Broadway musicals.
Oh, well, funny you say Broadway musicals. I have a question for you. So looking forward, if The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang were to become a Broadway musical, what scene would you be most excited to see brought to life on stage?
Oh, okay. This is kind of cool because from the shows that I've seen, some of the more amazing things I've seen, like I saw Beauty and the Beast on Broadway many, many years. And when they changed the Beast into the Prince, it was like magic. I didn't know how they did it. And so I feel like how you transition from Eugenia's into her visions and back and forth would be interesting to see on stage and how they would pull that off.
Well, finally, last question. How do you hope that The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang contributes to a child's reading journey?
I hope it makes them love reading more, because my main goal is just to entertain. So, if it's entertaining because I get them all spooked or because they thought it was just so funny, I would love for that to lead to a deeper appreciation of reading and graphic novels and my writing especially.
And let's just do a quick shout out and a high five across screens here. But everybody, graphic novels is real reading.
It is real reading, yes.
It's real reading.
And for any of your parents that say, don't read a graphic novel, that's not a real book. But in the same breath, when they're trying to read a graphic novel, they're like, well, how do I read this and where do I start? Ha! In your face.
Stan, I can't thank you enough for hanging out with me and the listeners today. And it's been a real treat to dive into The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang, which is the perfect blend of spooky and funny. I absolutely loved it. It definitely deserved that Junior Library Guild Award or selection. So just so proud of you for that. And I've loved hearing the stories behind the story. And I think...
Well, thank you.
I think what's really struck with me today is your journey with representation in your work, and that moment when you realize that your characters didn't actually look like you, and then finding your way through reading other books. I think that's really going to stick with me, and I bet with a lot of listeners, they're going to connect with that too. So I also think that, Stan, we'll all be first in line for tickets when that Broadway musical happens. But until then, thanks for making kids laugh and helping them feel seen in such a normalized way. I loved it. And just a big thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this quest for growing readers. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Stan Yan about The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang. Stan's insights about representation, the creative process, and the importance of authentic storytelling in children's literature remind us why diverse voices matter so much in the books we share with young readers. The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang will be available where all good books are sold. You can find links to order the book in our show notes. To learn more about Stan and see his incredible artwork, visit his website at stanyan.me. You'll find his portfolio information about his teaching and updates on his latest projects. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help other book lovers discover our conversations and support the incredible creators we feature. And don't forget to share this episode with friends, teachers, librarians, or anyone who would appreciate hearing about the thoughtful process behind creating authentic, engaging stories for young readers. Until next time, keep reading and keep supporting the amazing creators bringing diverse stories to life. The Growing Readers Podcast is a production of the Children's Book Review. For more great books like The Many Misfortunes of Eugenia Wang, I hope you'll visit us at thechildrensbookreview.com.
Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu, is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.
Your sausage McMuffin with egg didn't change. Your receipt did. The sausage McMuffin with egg extra value meal includes a hash brown and a small coffee for just $5. Only at McDonald's for a limited time.
Prices and participation may vary.